This is Proficiency in Sentence Writing, Complex Sentence, Lesson 1. Okay, I'm going to try and make this as fast as I can. There's a lot to this. Complex sentences have, you need to understand the difference between different types of junk that we talk in class. So this is a sentence. The boy jumps from the wall. From the wall is the junk. You got subject, verb is jumps, and then from the wall is junk. There's actually in the grammar world, there is now the word junk is all my creation, but for this activity, you need to kind of understand the difference between different types of junk, and that's not necessarily important for my class, but it's important for this worksheet. It's important for grade school, and they taught it to you in grade school, and so here it is again. So this is the junk at the end of the sentence. The boy jumps from the wall. If I change that from the wall to the boy jumps because he is good at it. Now that's junk, but originally that junk was from the wall. Now it's because he's good at it. If you look at the junk that I just did there, from the wall, if I get rid of the first word in the junk, if I get rid of from, your junk is, what's left is the wall. If you get rid of the word because in the new junk, what you're left with is he is good at it. And that junk is a really heavy duty junk. That junk in the because he is good at it version is called a dependent clause. It's called a clause because actually what's buried inside because he is good at it, what's buried there, I guess it's buried, but if you get rid of the word because, what's in there is actually a full sentence, and clause means sentence. This can't be a sentence on its own, and that has everything to do with the word because being part of it. This can't stand on its own, so this is called it is a sentence, but it's not a sentence because the word because. This is a sentence. There's nothing interfering with this being a sentence. This is a dependent clause, this is an independent clause. So moving down here, we can use the telescope. Here's some junk, but that isn't a clause kind of junk. It's not a dependent clause kind of junk. Here is dependent clause bit of junk. The stars come out, that's a sentence killed off by its opening word when. This is another one. So here's the trees were lying in the street is junk, but that is not a dependent clause because if you get rid of in, you just have the street, not a full sentence. The wind blew at 50 miles per hour. Now that's a sentence. This is a dependent clause. This is a dependent clause. This is a dependent clause. These are just light bits of junk. These are heavy-duty bits of junk. So going over to the worksheet, I've labeled some things already. You need to label the structure of the sentence. Like all junk, you can flip that junk to the front end of the sentence. And so when the stars come out, comma, we can use the telescope. That's actually a flipped sentence. Core junk, the core junk, which happens to be a dependent clause, has been flipped to the front. So it's D, comma, I. That's the structure. All of the sentences on this worksheet are going to be I, comma, D, or not I, comma, D, are going to be D, comma, I, or ID. If everything's in its natural order, which is independent, which is subject verb, which is an independent clause, and then junk, which a dependent clause can be junk. If it's in its natural order, where it goes subject, workers, and then verb came, and then junk, if it's in that order, there's no comma in it. So ID or D, comma I, those are the two things. You're not having to label, you do not have to label the subjects and verbs on these sentences, but the instructions are asking you to single underline the dependent clause and double underline the independent clause. It's not tricky in a D, comma I situation, because when there's a comma, that's D, it's always going to be D, comma I on this worksheet. But it is tricky on this one, knowing where the dependent clause starts on an ID sentence. So what you mostly need to figure out is the junk, if I look inside that junk, is it capable of being a full sentence? And the storm stopped. Yeah, that's capable of being a full sentence. So you take the word that opens up that bit of junk, and that becomes when the storm stopped as your dependent clause. And then here's your independent clause labeled there. That's it. I wish I could have done a better job, but that's pretty good to get you started.